Hey Merfolk fans, I'm Joe. Thanks very much for joining me today. If you'd like to support my channel, please check out the link above to my Patreon page. I'm here today with a replay of a modern friendly league. I've been back from vacation for a couple weeks now and getting back in the swing of things, playing some Magic, trying to see how Merfolk feels in the format. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my last upload, which was sort of a review of my friend Kyle's Faithless Burn list. I thought it was really kind of an interesting take. A lot of people seem to think that Faithless looting isn't great in Burn, since you typically just want to draw burn spells, and looting is not that. But he's doing really well with the deck, and I'd be interested to hear if any of you guys have tried it out. But for today, I'm going to be showing you guys some Merfolk action. The first list I ran when I got back from vacation was a pretty sort of old school stock Merfolk list. It had 4 Curse Catchers. I had a couple of Kiras in the main deck. Unfortunately, that list really wasn't feeling that great. And anecdotally, because I only played maybe 4 or 5 leagues with it, Curse Catcher felt like the weak link. And I don't know if it's because it's just a 1/1 and it doesn't really do much as far as combat goes, or whether because its ability is somewhat irrelevant in the format right now. It's sort of hard to say, but Curse Catcher was just frequently a bad card. I would draw it in the late game, and it didn't really do anything, or just play against decks where they don't really care about Curse Catcher's effect. So that being said, I decided to just take the Curse Catchers out of the deck for a while, and I substituted them straight up with a playset of Phantasmal Images. What this does to the list is just sort of chops the curve a little bit. We don't have any 1-drop creatures, so it seemingly would weaken AEther Vial, since we're never going to have anything to put in with AEther Vial on 1 counter. But again, Curse Catcher was frequently feeling underpowered in my games. And since I've started playing with Phantasmal Images, my results have been turning around. Had a whole bunch of 4/1s, a couple 3/2s, and yeah, it's just felt sort of smoother, and it's just a much better top deck than Curse Catcher. Once you get past turn 3, turn 4, Curse Catcher gets really, really bad, and that's exactly when Phantasmal Image gets really, really good, because you've got a bunch of creatures onto the board, the opponent's got a bunch of creatures onto the board, and you've got any number of creatures to choose from to copy with Phantasmal Image. Of course, the most attractive target for in our deck is Master of Waves, because even if the Phantasmal Image does have the clause that when it gets targeted it gets sacrificed, if you copy Master of Waves, he also has protection from red. So if the opponent has removal like Terminate or Bolt or Kolaghan's Command, Phantasmal Image is still safe from those. So if you look at the deck, really all of our targets for Phantasmal Image in this list are excellent. Even with Mutavault, if you're low on mana or if you're afraid of board wipes, you can activate Mutavault and copy it with Phantasmal Image, and you get another man land. Going through the other creatures really quick, of course, drawing an extra card is great, bouncing another creature, tapping another creature, getting extra buffs from a Reejerey copy. That also gives you extra cast triggers. And then copying Island Walk Lords is sort of bread and butter, right? You need access to Island Walk and you need buffs. So there's not a bad target in the deck. If you compare it to something like humans or spirits, they do have suboptimal targets for Phantasmal Image. Imagine if humans, you manage to control their board state to a point where they only have something like a Noble Hierarch down. Now it's going to be hard for us to do that, but imagine if Jund just removes all of their bigger creatures and the opponent gets stuck, the humans player gets stuck with a Phantasmal Image in hand. They don't have great targets to copy. Spirit, same thing. They do have some little 1-drops. Rattle chains can often be not that inspiring, so Phantasmal Image, not always the best card in that deck, but in this particular build of Merfolk, it's often one of the best cards we can draw, and it's been feeling great, as I mentioned. So this was the list that I ran in this league that I'm going to show you guys. It's my most recent league. Looking over at the sideboard here, 4 relics, 3 dismembers, 2 echoing truths, 4 deprives, all very standard stuff in our sideboard. I am running 2 Kiras in the sideboard, just to sort of see how the card feels right now in the format. I have a feeling that its stock is going to go way up if Assassin's Trophy sees a lot of play, as I expect it will. It's probably going to be a playset in Jund. It's probably going to be really, really powerful. It's probably going to hurt Tron. And that's really great for Kira because Assassin's Trophy is probably going to replace Abrupt Decay. Now, Abrupt Decay is fantastic against Kira because it can't be countered. And Kira wants to counter things. Assassin's Trophy, while it's much more versatile than Abrupt Decay, can be countered. And so Kira is great against Assassin's Trophy and against the other sort of regular counterable removal that Jund and other decks play. You know, Kolaghan's Command, Terminate, Lightning Bolt, all those things I was mentioning before, Maelstrom Pulse. Kira is great against all of those. So even though Kira might not be great today, in a week or 2 or 3, she might actually be much, much better. So that's the list. I am going to make a couple changes that I think I might as well just outline now because I think they're pretty general and you guys should hear about it up front, I guess. There's a lot of Field of Ruin in the format right now. It's not just in these blue-white decks. It's in Jeskai decks. I think that Jund runs it. But I've just been seeing so much of it. And one of the best ways to combat Field of Ruin as a mono-colored deck is to draw a hand with just basic islands. And there's not a lot of decks playing Choke or Boil, so having extra islands isn't really a big drawback for us. Actually, in the current format, I think having more islands is actually better. So moving forward, past this league I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to take out Minamo. Since it really doesn't do anything for us, it's always been a hedge against cards like Choke and Boil, and a little bit against the mirror match, but Merfolk's at like 1% in the format right now, so it's really inconsequential, the idea that we should think about the mirror match. So Minamo does nothing, since there's not a lot of Choke, not a lot of Boil. We can play as many islands as we want right now, take Minamo out, and have an extra basic island in to help make opponents' Field of Ruins worse, because if we open the game with island, 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 maybe the opponent keeps a hand like Hallowed Fountain, Field of Ruin, right? And then they can't crack their Field of Ruin, they can't access their colors. We can just run over a deck if that happens. Cavern of Souls, including it as a 2-of because there is a fair amount of control in the format, but these control decks do run Field of Ruin, so it may just be better to run more islands. I'm still on the fence about that. Let me know what you guys think about Cavern of Souls versus basic islands. Oboro is actually a funny card against Field of Ruin because often an opponent will just see a non-basic and just try to blow it up with Field of Ruin. But, of course, you guys know, we can return Oboro to our hand. So if the opponent does that, not only do they waste the mana activating Field of Ruin, but bouncing Oboro to our hand effectively counters the Field of Ruin, so the opponent can't get a land to replace it. So it could be kind of a blowout against decks, and Oboro is pretty good in the deck, even with Field of Ruin in the format, because of this sort of gotcha effect. If we're tapped out, sure, the opponent can hit Oboro, but you know we very often have 1 mana up to bounce it back to our hand. So yeah, again, let me know what you think about Cavern of Souls. Should it be more islands? I feel like maybe it should actually. I'm not 100% sure. And the other change is I really want an extra counter spell to help against control decks and combo decks. So I think I'm just going to trim a Dismember and add in a negate over here. And just subtle adjustments to how the format feels. Things are going to change a lot when Guilds of Ravnica is released and Assassin's Trophy is legal in the format. All right, so with all that outlined, I'm going to go ahead to the first round. See you guys there. All right, I'm here with the first round of this Modern Friendly League. I won the die roll, that's excellent, but this hand is not excellent whatsoever. So starting a league with a mulligan always kind of feels bad, and this isn't much better. Turn 1 Vial, turn 2 Vial is sort of strong, but I've got so little early action. It's possible that I should multi-5, but we're going to get to Scry. So I kept this. It's possible I should have mulliganed, I'm not sure. The opponent mulliganed. Well, so Master of Waves has to go. And the opponent went to the bottom as well, so clearly going to open Island into AEther Vial. Opponent Forest, Ancient Stirring, so some kind of Tron build probably. Could be red-green Tron, but it's probably just regular green Tron. You know, like red-green Eldrazi, I guess is what I meant to say, not Tron. Okay, Urza's Tower. They're gonna start on their way to Tron next turn. Hoping to draw land here, I think. Unfortunately, we draw another Master of Waves. That's only going to slow us down. That means between the Scry to the bottom and the 2 in our hand, all 4 Master of Waves were in our hand in the top. We're in the top 8 cards of the deck. It's just pretty unlucky. So having not drawn a land, I can't really play anything here. So opponent plays that tower that we saw, another Ancient Stirrings, and Ugin. Fortunately, the opponent is still 2 Tron lands away, but that's always very scary to see, especially with such a slow opening on our side. Aether Vials both tick up, still hoping for land here. Spreading Seas is a great draw in this matchup, but without a second land, not that great. Opponent hits their second Tron piece and slams an Expedition map with 2 open mana, which means that next turn they are going to have access to Ugin mana unless we can draw land and Spreading Seas. So end step, I'm definitely going to bring in this Harbinger, start a clock going. It's like the slowest possible clock out of this deck. Take both files up here, get ready for Master of Waves. Hoping for land. Okay, and we hit land, so no choice here, really. I'm just going to play the island, play the Spreading Seas. First get in for 2 with Harbinger. And yeah, we'll go ahead and put Spreading Seas on that tower, I think. Opponent's going to crack the Expedition map, and we'll see what they fetched off of that. Well, so they got a power plant. Typically, when you put Spreading Seas on one of their Tron pieces, they'll go and fetch a replacement for that piece. It looks like the opponent might have another tower in hand already, since they went and got a power plant. Either that, or hopefully it's like a misplay by the opponent. All right, so we drew a Reejerey. At least we can vial that guy in. We can swing for 5 next turn. Well, there's the power plant that the opponent drew. So we've seen this tower, and we've seen this power plant. So we know that the opponent has Ugin in hand. Fortunately, they can't cast him this turn. So Oblivion Stone is very, very, very rough. It's kind of a combo with Ugin because any board state that we built to deal with Ugin is just going to be negated by Oblivion Stone. In this this instant, really the Aether Vials are the way that we could combat Ugin. If the opponent slammed Ugin, we could bring in Master of Waves on the end step and hopefully kill him on our turn, basically working around him at instant speed since Ugin can only operate at sorcery speed. But this Oblivion Stone is going to make it really, really hard for us to do that because it's going to blow up the Aether Vials. It's also going to blow up the Spreading Seas. That explains actually why the opponent got a power plant, because Oblivion Stone will get rid of the Spreading Seas. So they didn't have to get another tower. That's really rough for us. We're going to bring in Reejerey here. And maybe hope for another Spreading Seas, I guess. No, well, no, that doesn't even really work because the opponent plays a 5th land, which seems likely since they have 5 cards in hand and 6 after their draw step next turn. Spreading Seas doesn't really matter. They're just going to wipe it away anyway, so I don't really know that we have outs in our main deck here. Phantasmal Image is a really, really good card in this spot. It's just that the opponent has us utterly outclassed. I could flash in Phantasmal Image, copy Reejerey, and swing for 7 instead of 5 here. It doesn't really do anything. All I'm waiting to see here is that the opponent does in fact have a 5th land. And they do. Sanctum of Ugin. Note that they don't have Tron mana at this point, but they have enough mana to crack Oblivion Stone. So they start to do that, but then think better of it, passing to my turn. I'm not sure it makes a big difference in this case, because all it does really, I guess, is if they crack it, I have 2 islands untapped. I could flash in a Merfolk Trickster to start the beatdown plan next turn, but Oblivion Stone would deal with my vials and any creatures that I vialed in, so the opponent's got me pinned to the ground here, playing their 5th land, so just kind of hustling through here because the game is over. I did draw a 3rd land, pretty good with 3 Master of Waves in hand, but opponent goes to crack. I'm going to lose both of my Aether Vials down to just my lands, and I just scooped because, of course, we know he has the Ugin in hand, so pretty terrible hand. Pretty terrible first game for us in the league. Let's see if game 2 went a little bit better. All right, here for game 2. Let's have a look at the opening hand. I'll be on the play. And this is about as good as it gets against Tron. We've got 2 lands, 2 creatures, Aether Vial, Deprive, Echoing Truth. Really important to note the combo between Echoing Truth and Deprive for those of you guys who don't really think about these 2 cards as having too much to do with one another. If the opponent does manage to stick one of their scary spells, you can always just Echoing Truth it, and then if they try to cast it again, you can Deprive it at that point. The only thing this hand is missing is like a Spreading Seas, but it's got definitely enough to work with. I'm going to mulligan to 6 here. They went to the top. So something good up there. Play our Aether Vial and pass. Okay, so we dodged an Expedition map on their turn 1, so it looks like the Merfolk deck is having the better start here. That's more gas. That's exactly what I want to see out of this hand, especially with the opponent not playing an Expedition map. If they did play an Expedition map, we might want to see something more like a Spreading Seas or Deprive. But in this case, more gas is excellent. Okay, 3rd land is not bad with a bunch of 3-drops in hand. Okay, not another Tron land. All right, opponent's running out a Ballista on 1, potentially to deal with this Silvergill Adept. Going to tick up the Aether Vial. Drew another Reejerey. It would have been really wonderful if we drew a 2-drop Lord there because we could play a Reejerey. If he tries to ping the Silvergill Adept in response, we could just Vial in a Lord. Silvergill would survive. Ballista would die. The opponent would probably just scoop at that point. Drawing another Reejerey, though, means we just play the first one. Of course, the opponent responds by destroying the Silvergill, essentially making the Ballista, you know, like a spatial contortion that he uses on the Silvergill Adept, which is the best we can hope for against that card, since it's really one of the best cards in the format against our deck. So for next turn, we get to tick our Aether Vial up to 3, and if we draw another Merfolk, we can cast it and untap Aether Vial, which is always an exciting play. Opponent doesn't have a 3rd land drop. I'm gonna bluff an Aether Vial here. Spatial Contortion in response to Aether Vial. So at first I thought that this was not the best play by the opponent, because what could I Vial in that would prevent Spatial Contortion from killing Reejerey? But upon thinking about it a little bit more, things could go wrong for the opponent in a couple of ways if he doesn't respond here. If I brought in another Lord and he doesn't respond, of course Reejerey will just be a 3/3, the other Lord will be a 3/3, and then if they sit back and wait for more action, I can untap next turn, tick the Aether Vial up to 3, cast a Reejerey. At that point, if the opponent tries to kill one of the 2 Lords, the Reejerey and the guy that I Vialed in, I could respond with Aether Vial and make them 4/4s, and that would be really terrible for the opponent. So basically the first scenario where not playing Spatial Contortion here could be bad is if I have a Lord right now and the opponent just waits until my turn. The other situation where it could be bad is if I Vial in a Phantasmal Image right now, I could just copy the Reejerey. Whereas if he kills the Reejerey, I have nothing to copy. So pretty decent play by the opponent. I always like trying to suss out any removal from an opponent with Aether Vial on the end step. If the opponent has it in hand, you know, they can play it whenever they feel it's sort of best for them. But by activating Aether Vial, it often puts them in a difficult situation where they have to respond now. So going into my turn, I know that they're tapped out. I know that they have 1 fewer piece of removal in their hand, and we can go ahead and develop our own board. So tick Vial up to 3. We're hoping to draw a Merfolk, and we draw an excellent one. Particularly excellent because we just saw Spatial Contortion, because we can go ahead and just run out 3 Lords this turn, which means that they have 4 toughness, which means that Spatial Contortion can no longer kill them. Okay, they hit a 3rd land drop. They have the Oblivion Stone, but they need 2 more lands to crack that thing, and if we get 2 attacks in, we're obviously just going to win. Drew a Mutavault. It's fantastic. It's another attacker. More relevant is that I get to play both of my spells if I want to, but I really don't think there's anything in the opponent's deck that could beat me at this point. Gonna swing for 12, Echoing Truth, the Oblivion Stone. If the opponent replays it, I can just counter it or not, or even not counter it, it doesn't even matter. If they have something else threatening, which, I don't really think that they could possibly play something threatening in this situation, I have Deprive up for it. But the opponent scooped, and that was pretty solid game 2. Let's go ahead and see how game 3 went. Hey guys, back for game 3 against Tron. They will be on the play, and this is a solid Merfolk hand. Obviously, it doesn't have Spreading Seas, doesn't have Deprive. Those are our key spells against them, but we don't win the game without Merfolk, and this hand has Merfolks in spades. So Silvergills will help us hopefully draw into some of those important cards like Deprive and Spreading Seas, so it's an absolute keep. The opponent is mulliganing a lot. Let's see what they do with their mulligan. Oh, they went to the bottom, so things looking up for us. But Tron piece into Expedition map. Pretty good. A land is pretty good for us. Unfortunately, we don't have a 1-drop to play. It's one of the downsides of playing a curve that starts at 2, apart from AEther Vial, but we don't really have good 1-drops to choose between in Merfolk, so I feel good playing no 1-drops right now. Opponent played their second Tron land, which is really annoying because it means they're going to have Tron online next turn and can just take over the game. We drew another Lord for the turn, and so having not drawn a Deprive or Spreading Seas, the next best option is Silvergill Adept to hopefully dig into one of those cards and only be sort of 1 turn behind the Tron opponent. Spreading Seas is excellent, but we know that they have Tron. I'll go ahead and just hide that power plant since he played it. And we're hoping to dodge Karn here, or Walking Ballista, I think. Whenever the opponent ticks down their mana like this, I always feel like it's going to be Walking Ballista, but thankfully, Wormcoil Engine. Wormcoil Engine is a pain in the butt because, it's a 6/6. It's hard to attack through. It gains them a bunch of life, but it takes 4 hits to kill us, right? It doesn't really take over the game, so that was kind of what I was praying for that turn, and thankfully we got it. And there's a Deprive. We drew runner key cards in the matchup. So we don't know anything about the opponent's hand at this point. But if we let them untap and they play any land, they'll be able to play Ugin. So I think the most proactive play here is just to play Spreading Seas on one of their Tron lands. That means they absolutely won't be able to land Ugin next turn. And hopefully we can draw another land off the Spreading Seas. So another land in this spot is not just important for being able to play Master of Waves. It's important to be able to play 2 spells per turn on turn 4. Oh, and there it is, right on time. So that's really, really great. During the deck tech, I was talking about having access to multiple basic islands to play around the opponent's Field of Ruin and make their mana more difficult for them. Obviously, this is not a Field of Ruin deck, but you can see that a lot of hands with the current mana base can be pretty island heavy. So I do like seeing those basic islands. Unfortunately, the opponent is going to be able to cleanly crack in with this Wormcoil Engine. They do have a 4th land, Ancient Stirrings. We can see what they draw off of that. So they got another power plant. Well, that was a pretty excellent Stirrings. That means they'll have Tron back online next turn. Currently, Tron is offline, but having a replacement for power plant means they're going to have access to 9 mana next turn. Okay, another Lord. 4 Island Walk Lords. Deprive, Master of Waves. We've got a lot of tools to work with here. Now, we can play our land. As I mentioned, that sort of opens up ability to play 2 spells on a turn cycle. We don't know anything about the opponent's hand except that he's going to have access to 9 mana next turn since he has another power plant. If he has an Ugin and lands the Ugin, that will just take over the game. We can't do anything against it. We'll play out a creature, he'll bolt it, play out another creature, he'll bolt it, all the while ticking up Ugin. We won't be able to fight it. So, unfortunately for us, that means we can really only play one of our creatures, and we have to leave up Deprive mana. We don't know that he has some crazy spell in hand, but we have to respect the possibility. So I choose to run out a Lord. At this point, given the fact that we have a Deprive in hand, I chose to prioritize a bit of damage over drawing another card with Silvergill Adept. Also, on next turn, if we can run out a couple more Lords, we can push ourselves beyond sort of walking ballista range. So Kraken for 3, because we're definitely not trying to block this Wurmcoil yet. As I mentioned, we can safely take 3 hits from him. Okay, opponent plays out their 3rd Tron land again. And he tries to slam the Ugin, so we get paid off for leaving up mana. Cast Deprive, and you can see that bouncing the island is really not much of a drawback for us. Opponent's down to 3 cards in hand. We don't know about any of them. We are going to take 6 here. The opponent's going to go back up to 29. Seems kind of like an unwinnable race. Drew another island. I think, the only thing that would have been excellent there is, another Spreading Seas or another Deprive. Without either of those, I think we just go ahead and jam multiple Lords here. If he plays like a Karn next turn, Master of Waves gets cleanly answered by the Karn. So let's put more bodies on the table. Hopefully make it a little bit harder for them to deal with what we're working with. Walking Ballista also would be great against Master of Waves, but again, buffing all of our creatures' toughnesses makes Walking Ballista worse. Kraken for 9, bring the opponent all the way back to his starting life total. And can we dodge another Ugin? Okay, we see a Chromatic Star. That's not that threatening. Plays in Urza's Mine. That gives him a lot more mana. Ooh, tapping out for Ulamog. So when this is cast, he gets to exile 2 things. He goes for 2 Lords, and that hurts. But the opponent's tapped out. Going to take that 3rd hit from the Wurmcoil, go down to 2. The opponent has gained 18 life at this point in the game. Well, so that is an extremely interesting draw. And it really shows why Phantasmal Image is a much stronger card in many situations than Curse Catcher. The opponent has a 6-drop and a 10-drop. Try and copy either of those and get amazing value off of Phantasmal Image. Unfortunately, Ulamog's trigger is on casting, so copying it with Phantasmal Image won't get to take advantage of that trigger. The only thing it would do is give me a 10/10 Indestructible. If we look at Phantasmal Image's text, it says sacrifice it, so Indestructible doesn't really help it. If the opponent has a Spatial Contortion and I copy Ulamog, he can still destroy the Phantasmal Image, and I wouldn't really get value out of it. And also, Ulamog being indestructible means that if I block, I don't even get to kill his Ulamog, and he'll win the race on milling me before I can mill him. So while copying a 10-drop seems like the dream, in this case it's really not going to get us there. Similarly, copying Wurmcoil Engine, we can block and trade with that Wurmcoil Engine. We'd all get tokens, but the opponent would all the time be attacking with Ulamog. Only has to do that 3 times in order to just mill me out. So it doesn't look like it's going to be optimal to copy either of the opponent's incredible creatures. So instead, I think we just have to slam the creature that we have that's closest to incredible on our side. Actually pretty good in this spot. Master of Waves is going to give us 5 bodies that we can use to throw in front of the opponent's creatures and hopefully establish a board on our side. With access to Island Walk, we can crack in for 3 here. Now, clearly the plan next turn is going to be to copy Master of Waves with Phantasmal Image, create more chump blockers, and hopefully create an overwhelming army. Opponent untaps, draws, and goes straight to combat. Okay, so Ulamog is going to exile 22 of our cards. We can take a quick glance at that. Exile a Deprive, Echoing Truth. So let's see. Looks like there's still a couple Deprives left in the deck, so that's good to see. Let's check Spreading Seas. 1 there. All right, so there's 1 there. So I think there's 2 Deprives left in the deck, 1 Spreading Seas, but at this point, we're really just hoping the opponent doesn't have an answer for the Phantasmal Image that we're setting up to cast next turn. Or that they don't have something crazy like Ulamog, which again loses us the game on the spot. Opponent starts tapping and goes for Expedition Map. They're left with 1 card in hand, which if it was something relevant, seems like they would play it right now, right? So I got my hopes up here. And Deprive is a sensational draw there. I start to cast a Lord. Think better of it. I'm just going to copy the Master of Waves here. Again, we just need chump blockers for the opponent's next attack. And leaving up Deprive seems good because now we have protection against Ulamog or Oblivion Stone, either of which could just ruin our day. So Deprive was a really, maybe the best draw there. So we're getting a little bit lucky in this particular match since the opponent has insane cards. We're just sort of hanging on for dear life. Getting a big swing in here for, I think, 17. To take the opponent down to 12. And it does. All right, so they draw, and their first play for the turn is to cast a Chromatic Star. They're going to cycle that and play a Power Plant. They're still on 1 card. They go to combat. Get in with their two fatties. That's going to bring me down to 4 cards left in my library. Not going to look at the exile pile because it's just too many cards to process at this point. Going to not kill the Wormcoil Engine, just want to chump. I don't really want to give him more creatures as blockers next turn. Opponent goes up to 18. He's gained so much life off of this Wormcoil at this point. I think he's been in 5 times with the Wormcoil now, if I'm counting correctly, which is gaining 30 life. So for my turn, I draw an Echoing Truth, which is an excellent versatile spell, but I don't think it's super relevant in this spot. Definitely going to leave up Deprive. Playing a Lord actually just increases my damage, so it does have an effect on my combat step here, so I am going to play it. I'm going to go straight to combat. Now, the opponent could have a Fog, which I have seen out of Green Tron. I don't know if it's still being played, but fortunately we have an answer for Fog. If that is what they have, we're going to get in for quite a lot here. If we count it up, we've got 6, 3, 2, so it's 18 on the right, and 15 over here, so it's 33 damage. It'll be hard for the opponent to handle this, I think. No, I'm sorry. It's 21 over here. It's 7 times 3. 21 plus 15, that's 36. What does the opponent have in their hand? Fog? Nope, it's a Nature's Claim. So I don't actually think this makes a difference. If it resolves, it puts them to 22. It gives them 2 creatures to block with. They can, of course, only block the elementals. Block 2 elementals and gain another 3 life from one of the tokens. That would put them to 25. They would take 5 tokens, which is 15, plus again the 15 over here would be 30. They would go to -5. So doesn't get them where they want to go, and they're empty-handed. So I chose to counter it just to be a proud blue mage. And yeah, the opponent's going to take 36, and this 18 is going to soon have a negative next to it up there. All right, so it always feels really, really good to beat Tron's nut hand, right? Because they had it all this game, I think, right? They landed a turn 3 Wormcoil Engine. They went for a turn 4 Ugin. I can't remember if it's turn 5 or turn 6, but shortly after that, they went for Ulamog. So 6-drop, 6/6 Death Touch Lifelink, 8-drop Planeswalker, 10-drop creature that exiles 20 cards every time it attacks. And we were able to beat it, which is pretty insane. I think if you ask anybody who doesn't play Merfolk if it had a chance against that kind of a hand from Tron, they'd probably say no. A lot of people sleep on Merfolk, as you guys well know. So for me, this match was a lot of fun. I mean, even if I lost, I think it still would have been a lot of fun. People love to hate on Tron, and you know, the way that the axis that their deck works on, just ramping up their mana and then casting turn 3 Karn. But if you let it be interesting and fun, you can easily find it as interesting and fun. To me, it seems sort of like, you know, if you look at Merfolk playing against like humans, it's really sort of old school warfare, right? You just have soldiers on the battlefield just sort of like stabbing each other, and it is what it is. You know, there's some sorcery involved. But if you look at what Tron does, it's another level up there, right? It's sort of like nuclear war, right? And how do we stop it? You know, how can we possibly fight against this stuff? and you have all of these little maneuvers that just delay, delay the bomb from dropping, and so the opponent goes to press the button to drop the bomb, and we manage to push it off by one turn, by countering that one spell. Following turn, they do manage to stick another type of bomb, right? But it doesn't quite, kill all of our troops. We're able to rebuild, regather, and in the end, in a way, it's a lot more exciting than sort of your standard kind of combat and creatures punching each other in the face. So try not to let Tron get you down. Of course, they can just run you over, but it's not unbeatable, So try to have fun, try to enjoy it, and yeah, that's about it. Please let me know your guys' thoughts on, I guess, on the deck, subbing out Curse Catcher for Phantasmal Image on the match. Any other thoughts you might have, please subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, please check out my Patreon page if you'd like to support the channel. I'll see you guys in the next video for round 2. Thanks again. Bye.